give me your name and your job designation, please.
Right, so I'm Moira O'Neill. I'm a freelance journalist and I mainly write for Financial Times Money, but you'll also see me in Investors Chronicle, Money Week and a few other titles.
And you were moderating a panel for the Investor Summit and it was called Retiring Early. So why retiring early, Moira?
Oh, well, everyone seems to want to either retire early or get a bit of financial freedom. And I think retirement is no longer that cliff edge. So I wasn't surprised that quite a lot of people turned up to the session and they got tips like how to switch from a growth to an income strategy, the tax stuff to watch out for, using ISAs to plug the gap if you're retiring before you can take your private pension, and also things like making sure that you really check out the pensions that you've got, because lots of us have workplace pensions, maybe from a long time ago, that we just don't look at. We don't know what it's actually invested in. It's really important to engage with that.
You pulled together a top panel. Talk me through your panellists.
Hello, great. So the financial planner I had was Malvee Vaja from Rathbones to explain what's happening with her clients and what the worries they have. I had Helen Morrissey, who's head of retirement analysis at Hargreaves Lansdown. She was great on the political situation around pensions. And from Interactive Investor, another investment platform, I had Craig Rickman. Now he was able to supply us with some good hard data on what they see people actually investing in the run-up to retirement.
A bit of an obvious question, I suppose, but is early retirement a pipe dream or a potential reality, given that the folks in an Investor Summit have got a little bit of money?
I think they were all well on track to do that, but I think they're also there for some reassurance as to whether their strategies were right and whether they were thinking about the right types of planning, and also just a sense check on what is required. We did talk about some of the big figures, the levels of income you might need and the pension pot size that you might need in order to acquire them. And nobody looked shocked or horrified in the room when those large sums were mentioned. So I assumed they were all doing okay.
And retirement is about thinking about the stages of retirement. So could you talk us through the stages you should be thinking about?
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about the retirement smile, which is like in early retirement, you might spend a lot on the fun stuff and having a really active time and enjoying your money. And then middle retirement, where things get a bit quieter and you don't necessarily have as big expenses, but also this big worry that at the end of retirement, if you're in ill health, that you may end up with a bill for a care home that's very expensive. And I think that's what preys on people's minds and stops them enjoying their money so much as they might want to.
But if you were to chuck a little bit of inheritance tax planning into the conversation, might gifting be a thing that more people ought to be thinking of? Well,
as we discussed in the inheritance tax session, we talked about gifting out of income, which is a tip that people don't necessarily know about. Lots of people think about the annual allowances on gifts, the 7-year rule, that you have to live 7 years in order for it to exit your estate for inheritance tax purposes. But if you gift out of regular income and document it, then you can potentially give away a lot of money to you. And people are obviously starting to think about this in the light of the pensions coming into the inheritance tax regime in April 2027, and it's going to be quite a difficult transition for people, I think, because when you've been investing, for 30 years in a growth strategy, then suddenly start giving it all away and spending more because you're worried about an inheritance tax bill. It can be quite tricky. It's a bit of a psychological switch to make, and a lot of people struggle with it.
I'm sure we all know people who are struggling with that. It is a fact. Now, Malvee mentioned tax wrappers as being an important thing. What did she mean by tax wrappers?
Well, I think she mentioned ISAs are a really important way to plug the gap if you want to retire early, but also pensions being, the most tax efficient thing you can do if you want to retire early. We shouldn't, although we talked a lot about the political tinkering around the pensions regime being a big irritant for those who are trying to make plans, pensions remain really, really tax efficient and should always be used to the max in any scenario. There's nothing better you can do.
Okay. And if my final question of you were to think, top tips. What were the top tips from your panelists and from yourself? What are the wise things to do when you're planning to retire early?
Retiring early, I mean, it was all about planning. It was all about starting early, benefiting from compounding, thinking about things well in advance, maybe trialling a retirement income to see whether it suits you, really thinking about a retirement budget, what you might want to be spending your money on, not forgetting the variables that might crop up, like your car breaking down, maybe your kids needing some extra money for whatever reason, or digging them out a hole. Who knows what comes up. I think we gave people a sense of the prep that you need to do if you're going to make that leap to financial freedom and start enjoying your money.
Moira O'Neill, financial journalist extraordinaire. Thank you so much for being supportive of the Investor Summit. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks.